All right, folks. It is hot. It is bothered. It is sweaty. The sun is shining. The dogs are barking. The birds are chirping. Everything is normal. And what comes with normal is a Perfect Spiral weekly podcast. Yes, we are back for episode number 15. Can you believe we've been at this now for 15 episodes, which means we've been doing this for about 4 months now. Good Lord. How quickly things become normality. And you know what's also normal? Our Legend series. And we are back at it for the second part of the Legend series today. We are going to the defensive side of the football, and we are going to count down the top 11 cornerbacks to ever play the position. It's going to get raunchy. It's going to get controversial right off the bat. And me and John are going to explain why our rankings are better than anyone else's out there. It's Saturday morning. It is June 5th. Yeah, June 5th. I got that right. It is fucking... I'm psyched. Let's go. Perfect Spiral. All right, guys. Well... That was one hell of an intro.
Joe just wanted to jump right into it.
I did. I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to do anything special. Johnny, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's fucking hot out.
It is hot. It's very hot.
I woke up. I went outside. I'm sitting outside for 3 seconds. I'm melting.
Yeah, it's brutal out today. The sun has come to New York, and we just got actually past a really bad week of rain.
Oh, it was terrible.
Oh,
rain
my
yesterday was so bad.
God. So, and now this weekend's going to be 90 plus. I wish we would have had this last weekend for Memorial Day when everybody was scheduling their barbecues, but now we have it this week, which is fine because I have a date with a pool after this is over, so I'm totally cool with that.
Nice.
Big date with the pool today. You know, she's going to rub my back. I'm going to rub hers, you know.
Make sure you put some sunscreen on.
Lotion, you know, whatever floats her boat.
The Crisco oil?
Yeah, whatever floats her boat, I'm there for. It's the only person that Hannah allows me to cheat with is the pool.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, little shout out, pool.
Lady Luck. Lady Luck. But we are here today to discuss not Lady Luck and not the pool and not the summer breezes. We are here to discuss the NFL. And John, I'm going to stick to my word. Football is 24/7, 365.
It really is.
It is. I mean, we got Julio going on right now in the NFL. Who's gonna land Julio? We got rookies signing their rookie contracts, you know, as things. Joke just signed his with the Browns yesterday.
Love that, man.
But if there was a lull in the NFL season, this is it, my friend.
Oh yeah, it really is.
This is it. We have come to the hard stop in the NFL news cycle, but we knew that.
Of course, we were prepared.
We were prepared, which is why we are now doing this Legend series. I want to thank everybody who listened to the first episode of the wide receivers. If you followed on Twitter, we were doing a countdown up until the release of this episode. So we will be doing the same thing next week. We'll be counting down on the podcast at Cornerbacks 11-1. We'll be doing about one a day, maybe two a day, and then as we'll get to number one right before we do the last podcast. John, you had a week to think over the wide receivers. What did you think about our list?
I thought it was great. I loved what we did with the Twitter. I thought that was nice, you know, like counting down, like with the little GIFs.
Right.
That was great. Joe, very good. Gold star. It was fun. I think our rankings were really good.
Yeah.
I think.
You know, it's funny because doing our rankings, I was expecting something similar with the cornerbacks. Mm-hmm. Didn't happen. At all.
No, it was kind of surprising.
It was a little surprising, you know, but we stuck to our guns. And after doing a little bit of research, made a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
Before we go into that, I just want to remind everybody, if you listen to us on Apple or Spotify or Google or Pandora or any other place you get your podcasts, make sure you rate, review, subscribe, and download to our podcast. We want you to listen to us. We want to hear from you. This is a big community. Podcast community is very large. It's getting larger every day. We want you to be a part of our community. So make sure that you go and take care of us. You scratch our back. we'll scratch yours with more episodes. So that being said, let us get into it. One thing I do want to say is, so NFL, a couple things I noticed when I was doing the raw scores for these cornerbacks is that a lot of these older players, right? So there are a couple of fields that, did you know that tackles, the tackle stat was not recorded until about the 1980s? Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yeah. So, like, we were looking up players that were in, like, the 40s and 50s. Mm-hmm. Like Night Train Lane and all these other guys. And I had to come up with a system, like an aggregate number, because it was forced fumbles, passes defended, and tackles that were not recorded out in the early days. Passes defended wasn't a stat till 1998.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. Was not a stat until 1998. So what I did is I took the average of what the number was from the players that did have those stats available to them.
Okay.
And whatever the average number was between those three categories, I gave that number to the players that didn't have it as like an add-in. Yeah. So everybody could be on the same scale. I thought that was the only fair way to do it. So
Joe is very much the math guy with this podcast. He is very much the math algorithm.
Well, somebody's got to be the smart guy, you know? John has the looks and I have the brains. It's okay. It's how we deal with it. Ask John about his love life. I'm sure he'd love to tell you about it, folks. So, we were able to do 26 cornerbacks that fell in our lap. And it was much tighter than the wide receiver position, I believe.
Yeah.
Like the first and second spot were separated by 5.5 points, so that was pretty close. And those two had a little bit of a jump between spot number 3. And then when you get to spot number 3, there were only 18 points that separated between 3 and 10.
Yeah, very close.
Very close. And then 11 was, so I wrote when I sent you the list, 11 and 12 were actually tied at a number, but they were not tied to like a tenth of a point. Mm-hmm. So one of those players got the nod over the other one due to that tenth of a point.
Which we'll get to that.
In a second. So the way we're going to do is last week, John will take care of the odd numbered players and I'll take care of the even numbered players. And we'll kind of just go through each one and we'll see how everything goes. Guys that were on our list that did not make the cut were guys like Patrick Peterson, Albert Lewis, Dick LeBeau, Roger Worley, Lem Barney, Jimmy Johnson, Darrelle Revis. Sorry, Jet fans, did not make the cut. Did not play on enough winning teams. Night Train Lane did not make the list, unfortunately. Lester Hayes, very good player. Aeneas Williams, who actually surprised. And we'll leave it there, and then we're going to get to some guys who just missed a little bit later on.
A few notable names there.
A couple of older guys, and then one player who's actually current and still playing. But that being said, John, are you ready to shake the cage right now with our number 11 guy?
Let's get right into it.
We're gonna shake the cage right now. We're talking about controversial. We're talking about how could you, John? How in the world could
Deion Sanders
be number 11?
Comes in at number 11 with a raw score of 90.
Unbelievable. I was shocked. I texted you and I was like, oh my God, John, Deion might be falling out of this top 11.
Yeah, and it's funny when you sent me that because first of all, I was like, no, I think I sent you a text saying no fucking way.
Yeah.
Because by a lot of accounts, he is considered probably the greatest cornerback of all time. But there is a but with him.
A huge but that nobody wants to talk about.
He is not a good tackler.
The fact that you say good and tackle in the same sentence, Deion Sanders, is even that's too much. He's an awful tackler.
Yeah, awful. Deion,
he had the lowest tackle numbers of any of the 26 people that we ranked.
Yeah, it was bad. And when we get to like other players, we're gonna actually revisit Deion when I get to somebody else. But let's go through Deion's numbers really quick. So Deion was a He's obviously a Hall of Famer.
Right.
He is a 8-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro, 2-time Super Bowl champ, and a 1994 Defensive Player of the Year.
See, it's funny. Like when you look at his, and I don't know if you're gonna. I'm sure you're gonna give us his stats. His stats aren't like eye popping. Like his actual stats aren't eye popping.
Yeah, there was a lot of consistency with him, but you know what it is about Dion that I feel like Dion was more of a show.
Well, he was also a great punt and kick returner.
Yeah, he was a great punt and kick returner. He is not the best punt and kick returner in his in this group. I think there is somebody better.
Really?
But he was more of a show. He wanted to play baseball. He did like a bunch of different things. Prime time. Like a lot of people remember him for that and those Cowboys teams, right?
Well, he was on the Falcons for about 5 or 6 years. Yeah. And he made them relevant for like a year or two. And then I think he went to San Francisco first for 1 year.
All-Pro years, yeah.
He went to San Francisco first for 1 year. They won the Super Bowl title, and then he went to Dallas.
Yes, and that's where he was a 3-time All-Pro at Dallas too.
Right.
And you just remember. I mean, obviously, there's so many legendary things with him as far as like highlights go. But it's crazy that he comes in at number 11 on our
he's
board.
He was a ball hawk.
Of course.
He wanted the ball in his hands all the time. But, folks, let's just make one thing clear, okay?
Could not tackle for shit.
We are ranking the top 11 cornerbacks to ever play the game. That means, coverage, interceptions,
sacks.
If it's there, sure, sacks, right?
He had 1 sack in his entire career.
Right. And tackling's a big part of being a cornerback, right? Like,
254 solo tackles.
How many in his career?
In his career, 512 with assists.
Wow.
But they also didn't account from 1989 to 1993. They didn't count solo tackles. They only counted combos.
Well,
so I mean,
listen.
Still,
regardless, that's low compared to the other guys on our list.
Yes,
that's
very
low.
Mm-hmm.
I believe one of the guys on our list had over 2,500 career tackles.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, and I don't think it's much of that Dion couldn't tackle. It was more that Dion didn't want to tackle.
He was good at one thing. He was good at being,
he excelled at it.
He excelled at being a ball hawk. Like he
like
knew
Marcus Peters.
Yes, exactly. Excelled at being a ball hawk, and he knew that that's what he was good at. So he just kind of stuck to it.
And listen, he got all pros out of it. He won Super Bowls out of it. He's an all-time great player.
Of course.
I just think when it comes to the cornerback position, and it comes to, okay, if I could pick 2 guys starting for me, cornerback, in one game, who do I want, right? Like we see it today, right? Jalen Ramsey was not included in our all-time greats list, and maybe when his career's over, he will be.
Of course.
But you look at Jalen Ramsey, and do you know how many times I see Ramsey play off the ball on 3rd down, like 6, 7, when it's like 3rd and 9, right? He'll play 5 yards off the ball, and he'll let the receiver catch the ball at the line of scrimmage because he knows he's going to tackle him before he gets to the 1st down marker.
And you know how many times Jalen Ramsey has blasted a guy?
Right. Dion never did that. He can't do that. He either can't or he didn't want to. And I'm sorry, when I'm picking cornerbacks from a lineup and there are guys that I want, I need guys who are going to be able to tackle.
Of course.
So I'm not taking Dion. I could find a Dante Hall somewhere else. I could find a Devin Hester. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And listen, cornerbacks, their number one job is not to get interceptions. It's to make sure that the receiver doesn't catch the football.
Yeah.
So,
and he, it's crazy because you look like going through this and seeing him come in at 11. And seeing exactly
and
why.
Coming at 11,
and nobody wants to talk about it.
With coming at 11, like by a mile. Like the next number 10 was 108.5.
Yeah.
Like we're talking 18.5 points higher. So it's not like everybody else's stats were so much better than Dion's were. Like his career statistics were so much lower than everybody else's.
Exactly.
So, Deion Sanders, number 11, come at us at Perfect Spiral, at PSP Pod. Hit me up. I will go to bat with you right now. We will war.
And this is a before we get to number 10, who is a fantastic player. this is why we did our
Raw score.
And you would think, like you said, with the wide receivers,
Right.
he's just gonna be at the top. But listen, this is our algorithm. This is how we
grade it.
Yeah.
You know, and another thing too is when it comes to players, winning is part of our score, right? Mm-hmm. Winning is part of our score. So that really is the main reason why Darrelle Revis didn't make our list. He didn't play on a lot of winning teams, and people always say, "Well, that's bullshit." You know, he's not the only guy on the team, right? He's not the only guy on the team, but as we said with the wide receivers last week, if you're truly the greatest at your position, mm-hmm. then you impact games to a point where you win for your team.
There's a lot of corners that missed the cut, man. Corner was deeper than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I know. It really was. So let's head out to number 10, right? I wish we had like you know, like the NFL when they do that kind of have like that prison bar thing. They're like, you know,
number 10.
Yeah. So at number 10 we got. Oh, my thing just finished. The champ is here. Champ Bailey coming in at number 10, a member of the Washington, formerly known Washington Redskins, and the Denver Broncos in his career. And Champ played for a long time. Actually. Very long time. He was probably the best cornerback of our generation growing up. John.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's even close.
Yeah, no. Who didn't know who Champ Bailey was?
So Champ is recently in the Hall of Fame. He was a 12-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time All-Pro, and was part of the All-2000s team. Mm-hmm. And Champ, let me get his stats up here so I could just explain to you how we're doing this. Oh, what happened to Champ's stats? Here, wait. Why is this has to go away? There we go. So Champ had 52 career interceptions. He had 9 career touchdowns. And I thought that doing these touchdown things was going to be a lot higher. A lot of them were pretty low, considering how many I think we take for account that defensive players don't score as much as like we think they do.
No, yeah, definitely not.
They definitely don't. But see, this is a pure difference right here. Champ Bailey had in his career, 832 solo tackles. He had 931 combined tackles, and with assisted tackles and tackles for loss, we're talking about over 1,200 career tackles. And that's a huge difference between those two guys. And, he was not a crazy ball hawk, but if you look at the passes defended, my goodness, this is just... One year he had 24 passes defended. I believe he's the only player on our list to have more than 2 years where he defended 20 or more passes. He had 3. Led the league in 2002 with 24 passes defended. In 2005 with Denver, he had 23, and in 2006 he had 21. So that was his
consistent.
Heyday. Very, very consistent. He played for 15 years. Started his career in Washington. Played for 5 years. Was an All-Pro. Was a Pro Bowler from the year 2000. So his second year in the league, all the way through his 14th year in the league, he was a Pro Bowler every year.
Yeah,
every single year. But it's not until he went to Denver, because you remember Washington was not very good in those early years where he was there. So he wasn't really recognized well as a great corner,
Can I just say something really quick?
Sure.
Not to cut you off.
Yeah.
When we were going through these and I actually looked at Champ Bailey's numbers, I didn't know he played for Washington.
Really?
Because I was so used to seeing him in a Denver uniform.
Right.
I didn't know that.
I remember he started his career at Washington. Yeah, number 24.
So I was like kind of surprised. I'm like, he played for a team other than Denver?
Yeah.
It was like super weird to me.
No, but he didn't get recognition, like national recognition, really until he went to Denver. His first 3 years in Denver was where he got his All-Pro years. And listen to this 2006 year, right? He led the league in interceptions. He had 10 picks, scored once, had 21 passes defended, as we mentioned, had over 160 tackles that season. I mean, just at the top of your game. And even in his last year, his last full year, he didn't really play Denver. His last full year, he still had 2 picks, 8 passes defended. He had over 120 tackles in his second to last year in the league.
At 34.
At 34 years old.
Sad though, that final year.
Yeah. I mean, listen, they went that's the year they went to the Super Bowl, right?
Lost to Seattle.
He had his chance in the Super Bowl and they got absolutely destroyed by the Seahawks.
But I don't think he played.
I don't know. He definitely wasn't starting, I'll tell you that much.
No.
But deservedly so. Champ went into the Hall of Fame quite recently. He only played in 2, 3, 5, 7, 11 career playoff games. And really, before 2013 was the years he actually competed in those games. He did have one. He had a pick for 100 yards in the playoffs in 2005, but he didn't score. Believe that? I couldn't believe I just read that. But anyway, that's pretty cool. Champ Bailey coming in at number 10, probably our most consistent corner over the course of his career. And now, with Dion and Champ off the board, I feel like we're doing like a backyard school, like pick 'em, right? And these are the first 2 guys that, John, we're going back a little bit for number 9, right? Is that correct?
Way back.
We're going way back.
Way back.
We're not just a current podcast here. No. We are NFL through and through.
We went through everybody. Coming in at number 9. With actually, he was separated by 0.5 with Champ Bailey.
Amazing.
Number 9 is Willie Brown with a raw score of 109. Willie Brown is one of the old timers, man. He played back in the 60s and 70s. An absolute ball hawk for his time. Dominated his division. They were petrified of him. I was watching this little video about Willie Brown, and I forgot who was talking. One of the old time players in that division, and Willie Brown would just talk so much shit to them. He's like, "It's gonna be like this for years."
Really?
Like I'm gonna end you every single time, and it's gonna be like this for years. Willie Brown.
Willie Brown? What he played for?
He played for Oakland.
He did.
He played for Oakland. He sealed the Super Bowl win for them. So
he was part of those 70s teams, right?
Yes, he was part of those 70s teams. So let me just go through really quick before I get to the other stuff about him. Obviously a Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro, 1-time Super Bowl champ, and 1-time AFL champ.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he actually sealed the Super Bowl for them by it was like a pick 6 they brought back to the house. And I think it was like it ended the game.
And that goes back to my point before. Guys who make impact plays for their team, and this guy did it to win a Super Bowl.
He did, and you know what's crazy is he's not even the only one that's done it in our top 10.
Really?
There's another guy that was very good at this.
Oh, Johnny did his homework here.
I did my homework this week. Willie Brown was an absolute game wrecker. He was all over the place. I mean, there was times where they were throwing the ball against it. It was like against the Chargers. There was one play where I guess the quarterback, I don't know crazy names like this.
70s, maybe Dan Fouts? I don't know.
It could have been. He threw the ball into I guess it was like 2 receivers in the area, and Willie Brown literally jumped over this guy's head and caught the ball, picked him off.
So he mossed him before mossing was a thing.
Yes, he mossed him in the 70s. So really quick, I'm going to go through Willie Brown's numbers. 54 interceptions for his career. 2 touchdowns only his entire career.
So that's what I'm saying. It was wild that we didn't know that.
Yeah, he played a long time. He played 16 years.
All with the same team?
No, he played 4 years in Denver, and then the rest was with Oakland. And he's one of those guys where you had to like get the number because it's not actually tackle stats.
Right.
But from what I could tell in the video, he was an absolute game wrecker.
Listen, I will say this, and we said it before. We mentioned it on our podcast, I think, on wide receivers, right? Yeah, with Fred Biletnikoff. Those Raiders teams of the 70s were nasty.
Oh, yeah.
They were nasty, and they were mean, and they were just like...
They didn't give a fuck.
No, they were guys you just didn't want to play. And think about all these guys we're mentioning, right? Willie Brown now, Fred Biletnikoff, who we mentioned last week. Guys that, these teams were so good. And they were good because they had so many great players on their roster. We mentioned last week, and I'll say it again, those Raiders teams did not have a losing record in the 70s.
No, absolute dominance.
Not once. If you were to take a small NFL fan today, like a 10-year-old kid who's like in love with like the Raiders or whatever, you just say, hey man, I just want you to know that like the team you root for, they were like the kings of football. And they really weren't, right? I say the kings of football. They never had a losing record in the 70s. There were 3 teams like that in the 70s, right? And unfortunately, and this is always going to be the story of the Raiders, they were the second best team in their conference all the time to the Steelers in the 70s.
Yeah.
The Steelers won 4 Super Bowl titles in the 70s. The Raiders won once. That's it. And, you know, unfortunately, I feel like that's always going to be a thing that happens when we talk about the history of the game and the greatest teams in the history of the game, is those 70s Raiders teams are going to be forgotten because the 70s was absolutely and unequivocally owned by the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys. But I'm glad that we're highlighting these guys like Willie Brown and Fred Biletnikoff, and I'm sure there's others.
Oh, there'll be more as we go through.
That, you know, highlight these great 70s Raiders teams. But Willie Brown, John, you said you watched the videos. He sounds like a guy that would be able to play in today's NFL.
He could. He was an absolute beast. Like, he's all over the field. Like, and that's all he wanted to do was just wreck the game. And like that again, not like we keep shitting on Deion Sanders, but this is why he is where he is.
Yeah.
Like, these guys were complete players.
Yes, absolutely, complete players. So let's head on to number 8, and then we'll take a quick break. So talk about controversial. A guy that comes in at number 8.
Very surprising. You were very
surprising. He's not in the Hall of Fame. And it's not that he's not in the Hall of Fame because, like, he just retired and, like, he's waiting for his turn, like Reggie Wayne is. Mm-hmm. This guy's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Ever.
No, I don't think so either.
And, you know, based off his career numbers, and I think it has a lot to do with the defense he played for, because he was an afterthought on the defense he played for, and he shouldn't have been. Mm-hmm. And coming in at number 8 is Rondé Barber of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that name may shock a lot of people, but Rondé Barber was fantastic.
He was. What was his raw score, Joe? 112, right?
Rondé Barber's raw score was 112.
Yeah.
112 for Rondé Barber. Rondé Barber played from 1997 to 2012, all with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Never left the Tampa Bay area. Okay? Rondé is a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time All-Pro, a Super Bowl champion with the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I mentioned that team had Derek Brooks. That team had Warren Sapp. So the 2 Hall of Famers right there on the roster that were part of that. Talk about amazing defensive teams. My God, that Tampa Bay Bucs defense was insane.
Very good.
Oh, my God. I'll never forget the playoff game they played against the Rams in 2002. And I believe they won 15-6. And it was just, it was towards the tail end of the Rams, like, greatest show on turf years.
Yeah.
But it was like their one last, like, hoopla, right? It was, they had just lost in the Super Bowl to the Patriots the year before.
Okay.
And they were back in the Super Bowl again. They were back in the playoffs again, and they played Tampa. And I don't know if you remember, but Tampa was not known for their offense, right? Brad Johnson was their quarterback.
Yeah,
Mike Allstott was their running back, who was more of a fullback, really, you know. And they didn't have a lot of great players on offense. They were much like the 2000 Ravens, much like those 2009, 2010 Jet teams that came up just short. They were truly anchored by their defense. Mm-hmm. You know, like I'll even throw in my 2017 Jaguars, right? Truly anchored by their defense. And this team went out there and they absolutely slaughtered the Rams offensively. Nothing. They couldn't do anything, the Rams, that game. They went to the Super Bowl. They beat the Oakland Raiders in the 2002 Super Bowl by a score of 48-24. Dexter Jackson getting that when you say game sealing, but the game was already over. But he had a pick six to end the game. I'll never forget that because my uncle had 1-4 in the pool and he was about to win, and then Dexter Jackson took a pick six to the house to make it 48-24.
Joe was like a fucking encyclopedia.
Lost all that money. I just useless information. But let us get to Rondé Barber statistics. I mentioned he was a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time All-Pro, a 1-time Super Bowl champ. He had 47 career interceptions, so only 5 less than Champ Bailey in his career. But Rondé Barber did get to the end zone 12 times over the course of his career. So more currently than any other player on our list. He was very good at defending the pass. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years, including his last season where he defended 10 passes or more. So very good there. And here's where I think, talk about a complete player, had over 1,400 tackles in his career.
Insane. And Joe, I just want to say this really quick because this is eye-popping.
Sure.
From 2000 to 2012, he played every single game.
Yeah.
Never missed a game.
Model of consistency.
Literally an Iron Man.
So, guy never got hurt. He was an impact player.
28 sacks in his career.
So, John, let me ask you. Why is Rondé Barber not in the Hall of Fame?
You look at his numbers and you're kind of like your head scratching.
They're very similar to Champ Bailey's, are they not?
Yeah, and at some spots they're better. I mean, 28 sacks, a complete player.
Right. So why is he not in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know, man. This is one of those things where it's a lot of guys that just.
I never would have thought Rondé Barber would have been on this list before doing this.
No, and you were surprised, but you know what? I remember growing up seeing a ton of Rondé Barber jerseys. You know, like he was a household name.
No, he was very good.
You know,
he was very good. He was probably the top 5 at his position during. I mean, obviously, according to our list,
why he's not in the Hall of Fame, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, he might have just been one of those guys that's been forgotten in the shuffle. You know.
You know, it's funny when Jose's listening to this podcast, he's gonna be like crying of tears of happiness when he listens to this about Rondé Barber.
Yeah, he's like, that's my cornerback.
Yeah, right. But I mean, Rondé Barber coming in at number 8, I think, is something that may surprise a lot of people. So we've gone 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. We've done 4 so far and already given 2 jaw droppers, John. So way more savagery than we did last week, that's for certain. But we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we are going to do 7 through 4 on our cornerback countdown. We are back, PSP.
Hey y'all, Spencer Blinn, the producer for Perfect Spiral Podcast, and you're listening to my band Hollow Choir's new song, What You Want. Available now on Spotify. What you want.
And folks, we are back here with our well, it's an overall one segment, but we had a little pee break. Gaynor went to go get a drink of water, and then we're coming back to do number 7 through 4. So if you're just catching us right now, or if you forgot, or whatever the case may be, so far we have Deion Sanders at 11, Champ Bailey at 10, Willie Brown at 9, and Rondé Barber coming in at number 8. And I am going to turn the microphone back over to John because he has got lucky number 7 waiting in the wings.
So number 7 on our PSP Legends cornerback list is Darrell Green.
Darrell Green.
With a raw score of 112.5.
Half a point higher than Rondé Barber.
Half a point higher than Rondé Barber. So, this was actually a fun guy to research a little bit.
Okay.
So one of the coolest things about him, before I get to his numbers, is that there was this weird competition back in the day where athletes competed in like almost like a triathlon. So they would run a football field with helmet and shoulder pads on. They would run the bases on a baseball field.
Okay.
And they would do a track and field competition.
Interesting.
And Darrell Green crushed everybody. So Darrell Green might be the fastest player in NFL history.
That's a bold take there,
There
sir.
is an argument that he is the fastest player in NFL history. A small man, only 5'8",
right,
But
So he's definitely got the speed thing knocked down because he's smaller. Smaller
Yes.
guys are faster, right?
And he definitely, but you know what? For somebody that's 5'8", because like you look now and you're like a 5'8" corner, it's tough. You're going against wide receivers 6'5", 6'4". You're gonna struggle. Darrell Green never struggled. Though Darrell Green was all over the ball. He made his presence known. So a couple of things. Let me go through Darrell Green's stats. He's obviously a Hall of Famer, a 7-time All-Pro, a 7-time Pro Bowler, a 1-time All-Pro, and a 2-time Super Bowl champ. Huge part of those Redskins teams.
Yes.
So 54 interceptions throughout his career.
Wow.
He played from when he was 23 to 42.
So he played a long ass time.
All with the same team. He missed a lot of games here and there. He had a
That's a testament to him, though.
yes. He did. He was always available. Towards the end of his career, he's more of like a rotation guy.
You're right.
He had 6 touchdowns in his career. He had so half of his years solo tackles weren't counted, but he had over like 1,300 tackles.
Before they started counting the stat.
No, it's like total. So like it's saying combo stat and solo. So he had 390 tackles from when they started counting them from 94 to 2002. But that was very much the tail end of his career. He had 1 sack in his career, which is
One
funny.
sack in his entire career.
So a couple of notes about Darrell Green. Let me go to my notes. Very fast. And I put one of the fastest players of all time. Very, very fast.
Well, he's fast.
Very fast. He was not a punt returner. So, okay, an interesting thing about Darrell Green. The 1987 Super Bowl.
Okay.
It was a tight game against the Chicago Bears. Wait.
No.
Who were they playing against in 1987? Fuck. Was it?
My encyclopedia mind is not coming to fruition. Hold on.
All right, while you're getting that up. So it was
Right.
a tight game in the Super Bowl.
I
And
want to say the Denver Broncos, but I don't know for sure.
you might be right. So they ended up, they needed a spark. So what they did was they put him in at punt returner. Now, you would think 5'8" corner would have always been a punt returner. He actually was not. He primarily played the cornerback position. And they end up putting him in a punt returner. And he's just absolutely electric. Shakes off 2-3 tackles.
It was 1988.
19.
And it was the Broncos.
It was okay. There you go. So he takes the punt return back to the house for the touchdown, and actually like wins them the Super Bowl. A lot of these guys did that, right? So like we're talking about how like a lot of these cornerbacks are like game breakers. They sealed Super Bowls, and he's still not the only one. But he was just an absolute spark, man. He was all over the ball. He punched the ball out. Like he was a fun player to watch. Like when I was watching some highlights on him and like watching and doing research, he was just fun, man.
He seems like a fun guy, the way you're describing him. But did you read into what led them to put him in at punt returner during that game? That's kind of wild that they would just on a whim decide that.
Well, because they knew that they didn't have somebody at that position that could give them that spark.
And I think the Super Bowl you're talking about is not 1988, only because I say that, and they beat the Denver Broncos 42-10 that year.
Okay, then maybe
the Super Bowl you're talking about, I think, is against the Bills in 1992. They won 37-24.
Then yeah, it might have been.
So
it might
that's
have been
probably
against
the Super Bowl you're
Yeah,
talking
it might have
about.
been against the Bills.
Right. But
Fun player, man.
I mean,
He's just
he's just fast.
fast.
If you're not first, you're last. You know, in the
Yeah,
famous
like-
words of Ricky Bobby.
That weird competition really was like,
It really like brought you over the top, huh?
yeah, I'm like, holy shit, like this is a thing, and everybody's just like, yeah, he smoked us. It wasn't even close.
Really?
It wasn't even close.
Did he go up against other NFL players?
It was like I think it was other NFL players and like other athletes.
Okay.
It was like a televised triathlon.
Really? Was it like for charity or something?
No, it was just like this competition that they tried to do.
It's like what DK Metcalf did, but like with everything involved.
Well, yeah, I mean, DK
And DK Metcalf got
failed.
smoked.
Yeah, he got smoked. Everybody's thinking DK Metcalf's face came in like 11th.
Yeah, he got smoked.
He was trying to be Darrell Green.
He's trying to beat Darrell Green. All right, so Darrell Green coming in at number 7. Number 6, we are going to turn back the clock a little bit here, folks. And we are going to go to a player who, if you like football, you should know who this player is. His name is Herb Adderley. And Herb Adderley played defensive back for 2 of the greatest franchises during their decades. And that would be the Green Bay Packers in the 1960s and the Dallas Cowboys in the 1970s. So Herb Adderley was very much a Super Bowl aficionado by the time his career ended. So let me give you, listen to this stat, okay? Herb Adderley, Hall of Fame, 5-time Pro Bowl, 4-time All-Pro. Now, you ready for this? He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion and a 5-time NFL champion. So Herb Adderley played 12 years, and he won the NFL championship 8 of those 12 years he played in the league.
It's like Bill Russell.
8 of the 12 years. Now, again, he's one of those guys where a lot of these stats were not conducted, but Herb Adderley had 48 career interceptions, had 8 career touchdowns, and over the course of his career, he was somebody who played in, listen to this, so they don't count playoff games, but he won a title in 61, 62, 65, 66, 67, 71, and 72. Are you kidding me?
I just was looking at that.
Are you serious?
That's insane.
My God.
He only played 12 years.
Right. He only played 12 years. And he made his mark on in 1967. He had 2 interceptions in those playoffs and scored a touchdown. He was not somebody who, frankly, he was not somebody to be messed with in the 1960s and 1970s. He was part of those fantastic. He was drafted in the first round of the 1961 NFL draft. He was on the all 1960s team in the NFL. And he was actually drafted by the New York Titans. Ready for this? Okay. He was drafted by the New York Titans, which would become the New York Jets, in the AFL draft of 1961. Right? So this is like just Jet torture, right? So he was drafted in 1961 of the AFL draft by the New York Titans, which would become the New York Jets. He was also drafted by the Green Bay Packers in the 1961 NFL draft. And he decided to go play for the Packers instead of the Jets.
That is Jet.
He said, let me go to the NFL instead of the AFL. And he ended up becoming this, he was this otherworldly talent.
Yeah, very good player.
It's funny. I think it's a little funny. And he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1980. He actually just recently died.
Yeah.
In October of this past year. So Herb Adderley coming in at number 6? At number 6, player of the 1960s and early 1970s with those. So he played with some pretty good quarterbacks. He played with Bart Starr. Mm-hmm. Played with Roger Staubach. He played with... I think another couple of he played with those great 70s Cowboys teams early on. They won 2 Super Bowl. One in those 3 years he played with Dallas. But just a really, really, really phenomenal player over the course of his career. Herb Adderley coming in at number 6.
All right, so coming in at number 5. So I'm just gonna preface this by saying it was hard to kind of find stuff on this guy for some reason.
Okay,
I couldn't. It was very weird. I was looking him up and I couldn't really find anything. So number 5 on our list is Mel Renfro with a raw score of 122. Another great Cowboy corner.
And he was part of those 1970s Cowboys teams, right?
Yes, he was another one of those 1970s Cowboys teams. He played with Dallas his entire career. He's a Hall of Famer, 10-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, 2-time Super Bowl.
10-time Pro Bowler.
10-time Pro Bowler. So he's up there on the amount of Pro Bowls for a corner.
Wow,
that's for sure.
That's impressive.
Very impressive. 52 interceptions in his career, 3 touchdowns. He's another guy where tackles were not counted. But another major staple on those Cowboys teams, those 70s Cowboys teams.
I mean, you think about guys that that were able to, and it's funny when I was looking at lists of people who to include in our initial scan of corners, Mel Renfro was on every single one.
Yeah,
and everything I was reading on Mel Renfro was great cover corner, somebody who was mean and great tackler, Like, and you could just tell, just from those small descriptions, you could just tell he was the complete package. You know, even if there wasn't if there's not a lot of footage on him, you know, and it's funny because a lot of those teams in the 70s, they ran the ball a lot, right?
Yeah.
That was like the heyday of running the football. And when quarterbacks dropped back to pass, they kind of went for it all, right? And so for Mel Renfro to not have a lot of opportunities to make interceptions and still have 52 at the end of his career, which is currently tied for the most interceptions on our list so far, I think that's saying something.
Yeah.
I think that's saying something. When I was looking at him, I believe, you know, he wore number 47. So I think, you know, I don't know if that's a retired number by the Dallas Cowboys, but
Should be.
Mel Renfro, you know, another member of that. A lot of, you know, we keep talking about this, and I was going to bring this up a little later, but I'll bring it up now. The 70s seem like a big. There's a lot of great players in the NFL in the 1970s.
A lot of great players.
Like more than I could count. Like the 1970s seemed to be the golden age of like I don't want to say wide receivers and cornerbacks, but they seem to be the golden age of like, you know, a lot of different positions.
Well, it was basically the Renaissance in the NFL. So when you look at that period of time, they transitioned from the AFL and had the merger, right?
AFL to NFL was like 1965. So it's like, you know, but still pretty new.
Yeah, so like a lot of these players got a lot more exposure because they were on a grander scale, right? I mean, it's weird now. Like, we don't think 60s and 70s players are going to be that high up on the list, but their numbers are just so eye-popping.
Absolutely.
You know, the game is always going to be played the same, right? Every what, maybe 10, 15 years, I would say maybe every 10 years, maybe every 5 years now, the game changes, right? But you can't take away from what they've done.
The object of the game is still the same.
Yes.
Right? You have to score the most points to, you know, in 60 minutes to win the football game. And, you know, there are still teams today, like the Tennessee Titans, who want to run the football. They want to win games that way, right? Then you have teams like the Chiefs, who want to drop back and pass the ball 50 times. They want to win, and they want to win that way, right? In the 70s, everybody used the same philosophy, right? You ran the football, you know, that's how you were going to win. And when you wanted to make a splash, you drop back and pass, right? And my point is, because these defensive players' opportunities were so limited, these corners, when I haven't spoken about this yet, these older corners needed to be good at tackling.
Yes.
And they needed to be good in stopping the run. If they weren't good at stopping the run, they were not a part of the football team. And to me, that's like something that you can't count for that with stats. That's something that you know, as a common knowledge football fan, you need to know that these guys in, you know, from the 60s and 70s and even the 80s, they needed to be able to stop the run. Now, necessarily today, you don't need to be able. If you're a good cornerback, if you're good at cover corner, if you're good at kicking the ball off, if you're like, you know, you don't need to be necessarily good at, you know, like Deion Sanders would love playing in today's NFL.
Oh, he'd probably have 10 interceptions a year.
Right? You'd love seeing because you don't, as a corner, it's not like
it's all fucking air raid.
If you can't tackle very well, it's like, all right, well, we get away with that.
Yeah.
You know? Back in those days, if you couldn't tackle, bye.
No,
see you later.
And these guys are playing up on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, absolutely.
These guys they're in your face. You know, it was a different game back then, and I'm glad that they make our list.
So we're gonna do one more guy before we take our second break and do our top three.
Did you want to, before we go into the next guy, do you want to go into the notables that just missed?
Oh, good point. I thought I had about the notables.
There was a couple in there that just missed the list.
So yes, a couple that just missed the list. We have Emlyn Tunnell, who's actually the person who really tied with Deion Sanders, but came about 0.2 of a point short of making our list.
0.2 of a point.
Emlyn Tunnell played in the 1940s and 1950s.
Wow.
So he was somebody who there was not a lot of detail on, but you know, based off what we saw, obviously he's pretty good. And then we have Emmett Thomas and Mike Haynes coming in at number 13 and number 14, both with a raw score of 84 and 83. I believe Emmett Thomas played for there was a lot of players who he played on this list for? The Arizona Cardinals.
Really?
Or the St. Louis Cardinals or the Chicago Cardinals, right. There was a lot of players who were on that list. I can't remember if Emmett Thomas played from 1966 to 1978. He played his full career with the Kansas City Chiefs. And Mike Haynes played for the New England Patriots and the Oakland Raiders from 1976 to 1989. And those two guys just missed the cut. John, I know you're itching to talk about this man who came in number 15, our own Richard Sherman.
A little bit of a surprise.
A little bit of a surprise. Came in with a raw score of 80, so came in 10 points behind Deion Sanders, who make the list. Do you want to give a quick shout out to Richard Sherman?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to... So Richard Sherman was on quite a few winning teams, right?
He still is.
Still is. Not nearly the player that he was, but I will say this about Richard Sherman. I probably would have argued if he made our top 11 that I didn't think he belonged in the top 11.
Really?
And I'll say why I think so. People forget just how complete that defense was. It wasn't just Richard Sherman.
Well, it was Earl Thomas. Cam Chancellor.
Bobby Wagner. When you have other guys, especially two guys behind you at safety, it makes your job a lot easier. He was very good at like one thing. Like he was very good in man coverage. He couldn't play zone. Like very weird career for Richard Sherman.
Okay.
The length was there. A good player. Don't get me wrong, a good player. And he will be a Hall of Famer, I'm sure, one day.
He probably will be.
Because of what he was part of the Legion of Boom, you know?
Right.
Like when you're part of those legendary
teams. And he was the
teams,
standout.
Yeah, he was a standout. When you're part of those legendary teams,
right,
you tend to make a name.
Right. When 20 years from now, when people are talking about the Seattle Seahawks of the 2010s, and they're gonna bring up two names. They're gonna bring up Russell Wilson and Richard Sherman.
And but I want to give the shout out to the other guys too. Okay. Because Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas were no fucking slouch on that defense.
Not at all.
So he was part of a really good defense. I would have argued he didn't belong in our top 11, but Richard Sherman's still playing. So, I mean, let's see where he lands. I mean, he's still unsigned. So
he's been to 3 Super Bowls so far in his career.
Yeah, 3.
1 and 2 in them, but he's been to 3.
He got killed in the
yes, he did.
Kansas City one. He got made a fool.
Made a fool
because he couldn't play zone. He can only play man coverage. He can't play zone.
Well, let's get back to our let's get back to our list here. And at number 4, we have a player who I think, by my account, I would have thought would have been number 1.
Really?
Yeah. But the algorithm said no, so I'm talking about him now. And he's a player who, when I wrote down my list, he was the first player I wrote down because he, to me, in my mind, is the most notable cornerback to ever play the game. And that is Mel Blount. And Mel Blount played on the 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers teams. He was a superstar in every sense of the word. In a team where you had Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, the Steel Curtain, Jack Ham, Jack Lambert, Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, Mel Blount. I'm telling you, Mel Blount stood out on those teams. He stood from that group alone. Joe Green, right? Mean Joe Green. He stood out on those teams. That's how good he was. Like, I don't need to watch film on Mel Blount because I've already seen it. And I've seen how good he was. He arguably had better hands than John Stallworth and Lynn Swann.
It's crazy.
He, on our list, comes at the top so far with 57 career interceptions over the course of his career. He played 14 years, all with the same Pittsburgh Steelers team. Played from 1970 to 1983. He is a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 2-time All-Pro, a Hall of Famer, a 4-time Super Bowl champion, and he is the part of the 1980s All-80s team, and he was the 1975 Defensive Player of the Year for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And his raw score was 124, correct?
His raw score was 124, coming in at number 3. Mel Blount was just a freak of nature. He played in 19 career playoff games. His passes defended and his tackles were not accounted for, obviously. But in the playoffs, he only lost in the first round 3 times. Once in 1973, and then in his last 2 years in 1982 and 1983. But, I mean, just absolute freak of nature. He has 4 career playoff interceptions. Like I said, 19 career playoff games. He has 2 fumble recoveries in those 19 career playoff games. So he's definitely made an impact on those teams. But Mel Blount was another one of these 1970s corners. And I feel like we've going over this list, right? We've got Willie Brown, we've got Herb Adderley, we've got Mel Renfro, and now Mel Blount, who are all part of those 60s and 70s cornerbacks who were just, and this is the last one in the 70s and 60s, so we could say this now. These guys were so good.
Very good.
They made impacts on their teams, right? I don't care what you tell me. A team that wins 4 Super Bowls in a decade and you're a Hall of Famer from that team, think about how good you have to be a Hall of Famer on that team.
Yeah.
And
to win 4 Super Bowls in a decade.
It's insane.
You don't see that.
Think about this. They won more. Are you ready? I'm going to blow your mind right now. They won more in a decade than Tom Brady ever won in either the 2000s or 2010s. And think about how dominant Tom Brady and the Patriots were. The Steelers teams of those 70s were more dominant. Yeah. They were better. And Mel Blount is a huge reason for that. Huge.
His numbers are pretty amazing, too.
57 career picks in an era where throwing the football was not a thing. When we do quarterbacks and we look at Terry Bradshaw's career numbers, you're going to be struck because of how low his career numbers are. For a man that won 4 Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. It's going to blow your mind.
I've looked at quarterbacks from that era and even early 90s quarterbacks, and yeah, you're right. It's shocking how low the numbers are.
Right. So, and again, limited opportunities, and he guys still had almost 60 career picks. Just a freak of nature. And I guarantee you, if you go to the city of Pittsburgh and you mention the 1970s Steelers teams in the defense, either the first or second name out of their mouth is Mel Blount. Mic drop. That's it. When we get back for our last segment, we are going 3-1. Johnny will be on deck for 3 and number 1, and I will take care of number 2. So if you're not drinking yet, I don't know what the hell you're waiting for. But get ready to have some fun. PSP on its way back. All right, John, we got our last segment here.
The final 3.
The final 3 before we head out for this beautiful Saturday morning here in SI, New York. But let us get to number 3, John.
So number 3 on the PSP Legends.
A little bit of a shocker, I think.
A little bit, but when you dig deeper, actually,
when you really dig deep, he's unbelievable.
He's unbelievable. Coming in at number 3 with a raw score of 127.5 is Ty Law.
Ty Law.
So before I get into a little bit about Ty Law, I'll just go through the numbers. Hall of Famer, 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, 3-time Super Bowl champ, part of the 2000s Hall of Fame team. He played most of his career with the New England Patriots. He also dabbled with the Jets a little bit, Denver, Kansas City.
Right.
But Ty Law was a huge part of that Patriots dynasty.
100%.
In the early 2000s. People forget. So Belichick was always known for his defense.
Right.
Coming over to New England. Those early 2000s, that first dynasty, very, very much a defensive team.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Very much a defensive team. We're not even talking about the offense. Those Super Bowls were so close.
All of them.
Very close.
The Rams was 20...
I think it was 21-17. No, am I wrong? I don't know.
I think it was 20-17 that Super Bowl.
Okay.
Then they beat the Carolina Panthers 31-28.
Yeah.
And then they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, I think was scores 20-19.
Yeah. Very close and very, very defensive. Ty Law, I feel like, created the whole cornerback mindset for Bill Belichick, right? He was incredible. He was everything for them.
And think about now, like, right? Like, so Belichick, they've always had, like, that alpha corner ever since Ty Law left, right? You had, like, McCourty there for so long time, and now it's Stephon Gilmore who's there for a long time.
It's fitting Stephon Gilmore wears 24, which is the number Ty Law wore.
Yeah, I know.
It's crazy. So a couple of things about Ty Law. Let me just pull up my notes here. So Ty Law was a huge part of those 3 Super Bowls. In Super Bowl 36, he actually sealed the Super Bowl by a pick on Kurt Warner.
No, was that right?
Yes, he picked off Kurt Warner to win the Super Bowl. Just amazing. I mean, we go through his numbers, right? So he had a couple of seasons here where he had just crazy interception numbers. 53 interceptions for his career, 7 touchdowns. Tackle numbers are a little low for Ty Law.
Right.
845 combined, 708 solo. Not a lot of sacks, but he might be one of the greatest cover corners ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Just a blanket his entire career. And
When he was one of those corners where, and now we're getting into the age where, you know, passing in the league is starting to become more of a thing.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like when Kurt Warner and the Rams, you know, burst onto the scene in the late 90s, early 2000s, that's really when the league started to transform from, you know, you need to run the football to win to, oh shit, you could pass the ball 40 times a game and win. This is a thing. And when they started doing that, the good teams, the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, the 2001 New England Patriots, the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you know, and then you had the Patriots a couple more years. All of those teams have one thing in common. And we've already talked about one team with their cornerback. They took away one side of the football field.
Yep.
Ty Law, Rondé Barber, we already spoke about Rondé Barber. You could not throw on that side of the field. Imagine taking out either Torrey Holt or, you know, Isaac Bruce during that 2001 Super Bowl. Imagine doing it. Imagine being Ty Law and Bill Belichick comes into your office, not into your office, into your locker and says, hey, Ty, in order to win this game, we're going to need you to, you know, really take out one of those, you know.
Like really blanket one of those all-time greats.
Right. And I can't imagine doing that. And I'm trying to get the stats for that Super Bowl. Let me see. Here we go. I got it right here. So they won 20-17 in that Super Bowl. And let me see. Can I get... Here we go. So in that Super Bowl, Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt combined for 10 catches and 100 yards. Combined.
Insane.
Okay? I don't want to hear... Think about how good Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce were. They're both in the Hall... Bruce is in the Hall of Fame. I don't think Torrey Holt...
Torrey Holt is not. He should be, but he's not.
Isaac Bruce is in the Hall of Fame. Ty Law got cast with doing one of those jobs, and he held those guys to less than 50 yards receiving.
Yep.
Holt had 49. Bruce had 56. I apologize. By 6 yards, I was off. But, like, my goodness. Ty Law had one pick for 47 yards in that game. He had 7 tackles, 1 tackle for loss in that Super Bowl.
Big numbers.
And 1 pass defended.
Blanketed them. Fantastic player and a all-time great Patriot.
Absolutely. Has his number retired, I think, by the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken. No, he doesn't.
No, because what's his name more? Stephon Gilmore was 24.
Right. So, all right.
I love who's number 2 on the list.
Number 2. Number 2 and number 1. If you've been paying attention, I think you'll know where we're headed here. Number 2 is a player who is one of my favorite players of all time, honestly.
Just inducted into the Hall of Fame, actually.
Yeah, just recently.
This year.
This year?
This year, 2021.
Charles Woodson. And Charles Woodson played from the years of 1998 to 2015. Let's go over the numbers for Charles Woodson, and then we'll talk about Charles Woodson, because I think there's a lot of different things we could talk about with Charles Woodson. Okay? My man Charles Woodson was just, as John mentioned, was just inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. He was a 9-time Pro Bowler, a 4-time All-Pro. He won 1 Super Bowl title, and that was with the Green Bay Packers in 2011, and they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is a member of the All-2000s team, and get this. He was the 1998 Defensive Rookie of the Year, okay? And then 11 years later, more than a decade, he won Defensive Player of the Year.
And isn't he one of the only college players to win the Heisman?
Yes.
He was the first defensive college player to win the Heisman?
I don't know if he was the first.
He was one of them, which is hard to do.
He played 1998 through 2005 with the Oakland Raiders, and then he played 2006 through 2012 with the Green Bay Packers, and then went back to Oakland for his last 3 seasons. My man, Pots and Pans, Charles Woodson, as Craig Carton would say, had a cornerback leading 65 career interceptions on our list, 65 career INTs. And here is the guy who was very familiar. 13 touchdowns in his career, 11 via the interception, and 2 via the fumble recovery. He had over 1,250 tackles in the course of his career. And he had his share of injuries. In 2002, the Raiders were in the Super Bowl, lost to the Bucs, but Charles did not play in the Super Bowl because he was hurt in that Super Bowl. So he did not play in that Super Bowl. In 2011, he played in the Green Bay Packers Super Bowl, but was 35 years old, was not a huge part of that Super Bowl, but he did play in one of those games. He didn't really record. He had 1 pass defender, didn't do anything special. But
in 2011?
In 2011. 2002, he actually came back. He played 7 games during the regular season. He came back and played in the Super Bowl, and he got a pick. Just after not playing for like 3 months.
Yeah, Charles Woodson was just...
Charles Woodson was a complete gamer. He played for 18 years in the NFL.
Long time.
18 years, my goodness. And he was just, he never had over 10 picks in any of the years, but he had a year. He had 9, he had 8, he had 7, he had 7. Passes defended. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years where he defended 10 passes or more. And he had, it's funny. He only had 1 year where he had over 100 tackles, but he had 20 sacks in his career. So he did come off the edge a little bit. He was just a player who you looked at and you said, wow, Charles Woodson. He never flashed anything, John, but he was always somebody who was just we spoke about it with Champ Bailey, and we'll say it again here. Just consistent.
Very consistent.
Guy you could count on week in and week out. You knew what he was going to bring to the table. He excelled at his job. He played for a lot of winning teams on his career, and rightly inducted into the Hall of Fame this past year.
It was only a matter of time.
Yeah, Charles Woodson. Coming in at number 2. Now, John.
Number 1.
Do you want a drum roll?
And then the cage closing. Number 1. Rod Woodson.
Rod Woodson. We got another Woodson in here.
With a raw score of 151.5.
And I should say Charles Woodson's was 145.
Yeah. So there was a little bit of a disparity. 151.5. So, Rod Woodson, quite the career.
Yeah.
Quite the career.
Should mention, he started out as a corner, just like Charles Woodson. They started out as corners, then transitioned to safety later in their career.
He did play. He played every position, but he was really like you said, he was really good at corner, but he was also a very good safety.
Yeah.
So let's go through Rod Woodson's numbers. Obviously, a Hall of Famer, an 11-time Pro Bowler,
Jesus, Mary
a
Joseph.
6-time All Pro, a 1-time Super Bowl champ, a 1993 Defensive Player of the Year, and part of the 1990s Hall of Fame team. So, Rod Woodson, when you watch his highlights, he was what I've been alluding to, where they talk some shit about Dion. Rod Woodson he would lay you the fuck out. He did not care.
He was on that Ravens team that won the Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was and it's funny because like you said, he played corner for the Steelers, an incredible player for the Steelers for a long time. Goes to the Ravens and is just as dominant as a safety. He was, so let me go through some stuff about him. All over the field. You watch him, ball hawk.
Mm-hmm. How many career picks did he have?
So he had, I think it was 71 career interceptions.
Unbelievable.
12 touchdowns returned for interceptions, which was the
That's
most.
the highest
That's
on
the
our
most
list.
all time. Well, it's the most all time by a corner. The most return yardage by a corner. I'm sorry, third most interceptions overall in general.
Right.
And what's funny is he's a very underrated punt and kick returner.
That's right.
Very good punt and kick returner. He might actually be probably the best one out of his group. He was just a gamer, man. A gamer. And those here, I'll go through some other numbers for him. So he's another one they didn't record tackles, a shit ton of tackles. I mean, we're talking like 1,300 tackles.
Yeah.
13 and a half sacks throughout his career. 20 forced fumbles.
That's a lot for a corner.
50. So they didn't start recording pass deflections until 1999.
Right.
And just from 1999 to 2003, he had 59.
When did he start playing?
He started playing in 1987.
So it's 12 years where his pass defenses were not accounted for.
Yeah, so
my dude still had 59.
Yeah. So we're gonna go back to this. So it's very interesting because he was an amazing corner. He actually transitioned to free safety in '99 on those Ravens teams. Mm-hmm. Like, my God, like at 34, he had 7 interceptions. At 37, he had 8 interceptions and 2 returned for a touchdown.
That's sick.
At 37 years old for the Oakland Raiders. He played the last 2 years of his career with the Oakland Raiders. He was a Pro Bowler at 37, Joe.
What year was that?
2002.
So that was the same year. So you're telling me this team had Rod Woodson and Charles Woodson in the back in their secondary in the Super Bowl? Unbelievable.
8 interceptions.
That's
at
crazy.
37.
That's cool.
Man, this guy was fantastic. And watching the highlights on him was super fun to watch. He wasn't like a big a ton of tackles in the playoffs. So when they started recording them, he had over like 100 tackles in the playoffs.
Just in the playoffs.
Just in the playoffs.
Unbelievable. That's some GOAT stuff right there.
Yeah, like it just you had to know where he was on the field. The guy was just an absolute beast. So he comes in at number 1 on our list.
He was Ed Reed before Ed Reed.
Oh man, I can't wait to talk about Ed Reed. That's gonna be fun.
So folks, that is our cornerback list. We'll go through it one more time. Number 11, Deion Primetime Sanders. Number 10, Champ Bailey. Number 9, Willie Brown. Number 8 was Rondé Barber. Number 7 was...
Oh boy,
my mind is eluding me.
So number 8 was Rondé Barber. Number 7 was Darryl Green.
Darryl Green. Number 6 was Herb Adderley. Number 5 was Mel Renfro. Number 4 was Mel Blount. Number 3 was my thing just moved.
Ty Law.
Number 3 was Ty Law. Number 2, Charles Woodson, and number 1, Rod Woodson. Good list, very good list. Some household names, some non-household names.
Yep.
Some controversial spots for a couple of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm happy with it.
Yeah, this was a good list.
I'm happy with it. Now, my question I pose to you: where do we go next? I have a position in mind, but I want to know if you're on the same page as I am. I have a position in mind.
Is it on the offensive side of the ball?
It is.
Are we going to the running back?
We are. Yes.
Let's go.
Yes, we are
Let's
going
go.
to the ground and pound. I tried to throw it in there a little bit today. It was like, back 70s, they had to run the football a lot. So
That is going to be one hell of a fucking list.
Listen, you're going to see Emmitt Smith. You're going to see Walter Payton. You're going to see Jim Brown.
Adrian Peterson.
You're going to see... Oh, God. Here we go. You're probably going to see Adrian Peterson on that list. You're going to see Barry Sanders, right?
I will fudge the algorithm so that...
So, I think you already know about 4 or 5 guys that are already going to be on that list, right? It's going to be interesting to see where the latter part of that list comes from, and honestly, where those 5 guys land, right? Based off our algorithm,
A lot of Super Bowls with the running backs.
a ton.
A lot.
So, running backs is on deck next week, and then I think the week after that we'll go back to the defensive side of the ball and do linebackers.
That sounds good to me.
So, do some linebackers, maybe some Ray Lewis.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I wonder where he's going to come in. That's an interesting one. Joe just flashed something. I won't spoil. Okay. I don't think so. But
You don't?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's undisputed, personally.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
I really do.
We'll leave everybody with that.
Yeah, we'll
little
leave
tease.
everybody with that. All right, everybody. We'll let you get back to your Saturday morning. Enjoy the weather outside. Make sure you get, today's a good day to drink some White Claws and, come on. You can't even tell me those aren't good.
I drank one. All right. I'm not going to lie. I drank one White Claw and it was actually kind of tasty. I'm not saying I would drink it all the time.
Bro.
I prefer, if I was going to drink something like that, I'd probably prefer like a sangria. Something nice. Nice and.
White Claw. They're good. They're dangerous.
This guy's married now and he's drinking White Claw.
Bro, I got a bottle of tequila in the freezer at home. Okay,
Oh.
don't do that. Don't do that. Don't come on here and slander my name because I have a ring on my finger now. Don't do that. It's not nice.
It's all right. I mean, whatever. Drinking White.
All right, everybody. We will be back next week. We're looking to go back on Thursday of this week. We just had a little bit of complication this week, but hopefully we'll get back on Thursday. Look out for the Twitter. We will be counting down 11-1 starting today of the best cornerbacks of all time in the Legend Series. John, any last notes for the folks at home?
Nah, man, I'm good.
You're good. All right. Listen, everybody, stay out there, stay safe, have fun, enjoy this weather, and we will see you next week. PSP.